Well, welcome to another lesson of the Discover Headless Tech course. I am Marcelo Lewin, the Headless Creator. As always, get a hold of me right there, Marcelo at headlesscreator.com. Today, my guest presenter is Dean Gonzalez. He's a lead sales engineer at dotCMS, and he's going to show us how to create a great authoring experience using dotCMS. But before we get started, let's get to know him. Dean, welcome. Glad to have you here, man.
Hi, thank you for having me, Marcelo.
Now, you're in Florida, right? Miami
In
specifically.
Miami. Yep.
Yeah, okay, cool. How's the weather over there? Chilly
Weather's
or?
great right now. It
Yeah.
hasn't been in the previous month, which I'm sure you've seen on the news, but
Yes, yes. Well, my father-in-law actually lives there,
yeah,
so and he was in that county that got hit the hardest. Luckily, he's okay and everything else is okay, but you guys definitely go through some bad stuff over there. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I had
Cool.
a needle here, but
Yeah, totally. Yeah, definitely. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background. How did you get into tech? How did you get into .cms?
okay. Just briefly, I have been into tech ever since Turbo Pascal back in the
Oh
1980s.
my goodness. Okay, I do remember
And the
that.
green screens. Then I went away from it for a little bit. I was going to go into computer engineering, but then I veered away from it. And then I just always needed to come back. Ended up studying Java, Cisco, SQL at Oracle, studied a little bit at UCLA.
Hmm.
And then I just met the great guys at dotCMS, and they gave me a chance to start up, and I worked my way through the company into various different positions, and wound up here at lead sales engineer, and I love it.
Do you still do development or?
Mostly just front end development. I actually build all of the demo or POC proof of concept sites
Right.
for .cms. So whenever any large, mostly very large global companies want multi-tenant, they want integrations with all sorts of other systems, I'll build the actual theme and make a couple of their pages. And we do that for free as an engagement to show how easy it is to integrate with .cms and proof of concept, all of the content and look and feel.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Um, what's your favorite or what's your front end language that you use? Are you React or?
Right now, I actually don't build a lot in React or Angular, although our system is actually built in Angular. I usually build just the front end presentation layer experience in Velocity, JavaScript, HTML, and
Got it.
CSS, and that's
Okay.
usually where then I'll hand off to somebody on our implementation team, or we'll hand off to a partner from that point. But yeah,
If you had to pick between sales presentation, sales engineer, which is very different than just pure sales, but
yes.
presentation and coding, which one would you go for?
That's a tough one, but depends upon the project, I guess. But I love them equally, and that's why I kind of like being able to build a different experience, only front end. But I am actually right now in more React courses and Angular courses. I'd love to get in AI as well, so that I can actually start developing apps and hook them into .cms through sales. Sometimes you need things that aren't priorities the same priorities as the production team. So I'm working with my sales manager to actually develop things on our own that actually
Hmm.
we can plug in as part of the sales experience so we can show those proof of
Yeah,
concepts.
yeah, makes sense. Cool. Well, I always end my conversations about something personal, and I know what you were expecting me to ask, but I'm not going to ask that. What's your favorite? There's a lot of cuisine in Florida, specifically Miami, because very a lot of different cultures, right? What's your favorite cuisine?
Well, I am half Cuban, Dean Gonzalez, and so the just home food is Noche Buena. So every Christmas I'll make the roast pork and the special mojo sauce and the yuca. So I'm very into the Miami just cheap cuisine, but I'm also a bit of a foodie. So I've got a paprika app on my computer, and I have about 300 recipes, and I always make Thanksgiving dinner. So
Oh, that's awesome. That's
yeah.
awesome. When I first moved to this country, I'm from outside of this country. Our neighbor was Cuban and we had Cuban coffee. I'm from Argentina, so hablo español sin
Oh
ningún
yeah,
problema.
there you go.
Oh, tú también. And then he would used to scream certain things, which I'm not going to say here, but it was always very funny. It's the typical thing that Cubans,
Oh yeah.
you know what it is. I'm not going to say it here live,
Cuban
but
bread.
yes.
Starts with the same letter.
Right, exactly. All right. But with that said, let's get started. And we have a lot of people watching, and I know they're ready to get started. If you have any questions for Dean, please put them in the chat. Dean, I'll jump in and ask. But with that said, I'll let you get started, man.
Okay, well, hello everyone. Thanks for joining us in today's session. I'm actually excited to show you some of the very powerful and flexible tools for managing your content in dotCMS from a headless perspective. Now, keep in mind that everything I'm going to be showing today can be done with out-of-the-box and no-code tools in dotCMS. The content editor does not need help from a developer or need custom development to complete the task that we're performing today. I'm using our standard demo environment and a demo SPA that is on my computer and has been built in Next.js. And I'm going to hook that up in just a second. And we will provide details so that you can actually test drive this yourself after this session. Right now, I'm going to go to our app deployer and actually deploy the Next.js app I have running locally. And this will control the pages on this .cms server in the cloud. My app will then read the page layout API and all the content APIs on the page and handle the rendering of that page in my external SPA. So the first thing I'm going to do is I've opened up using a tool called ngrok. I've opened up a way for the .cms server to actually communicate with my SPA. So I'm going to go to the EMA app, click on demo.cms.com. You can have one host. You can host as many hosts as you wish in .cms, no extra cost to you as far as we're concerned. And you can choose some hosts to connect to certain SPAs that you run and some that run .cms presentation layer pages. So this is the way that I can hit my local SPA and just /EMA for edit mode anywhere. I click save, and then the same page we were just looking at, now the presentation layer is going, now the presentation of the page is from my SPA. So everything that you're seeing now, you're going to see that the app is going to read live real time through the APIs every change that I'm making to the page, but it is my SPA providing this view. Our philosophy is that the content publisher, the marketer, should not have to lose the content editing experience in order to run headlessly, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is just show right here on this page. There's 3 different modes: edit mode, preview mode, and live mode. I'm going to hit edit mode. And I'm just going to do a little inline editing. So instead of explore the world, I'll say explore the rivers. Explore the rivers of Costa Rica. I click off. I can publish my change on my page and or inside the content. I can step inside the content and just do inline edits on the text for any of these contentlets on the page, right? So now, how do you actually get a new component or a new what we call content types on the back end? What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new content type, and then we're going to add it to the bottom of this page in this final row. Then we're going to change some layouts, right? So to add a new content type or component inside of .cms, you can see here that we have no call to action, right? So we're going to add a brand new call to action just by clicking here. Don't have time to talk about all the different types of content types you can create, but we're going to create a regular content type here, and we're going to call it a call to action. So, and so then I'm going to just click create, and that's going to give me this little layout editor where I can drag and drop fields inside of the content here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a site or folder field, because typically many of our enterprise clients run multi-tenant. So they'll put a content host field so that the same content type can be used across many hosts. We want that to be searchable. We'll show you what this is whenever we contribute the content. It'll make more sense. Then I'm going to add a text field called headline and make it required and user searchable and show in the listing whenever we look at it as a piece of content. I'll click save. And then I'm going to add a WYSIWYG later on. I'm going to add the block editor so you can see both. And we will call that you can see the notification about, hey, you could be using our block editor. Sub heading. And we won't make that searchable. And then I'm going to add 2 different rows down here for adding buttons. So this will just be text and a little subheading, and then some actionables down at the bottom, some buttons. Now, I can add 2 different buttons here. So I'm going to add 2 different rows so that it's easy for my content contributor to kind of understand how things lay it out. So I'm going to add a line divider now and call this button 1. Line divider here, button 2. And then I'm going to add the button text and the button URL. So I'm going to, once again, text over here. Button text 1. Let's copy that. So then I can also do that over here. Button text 2. And then add a button URL 1 and a button URL 2. Save. And a button URL 2. So just a simple content type, and save, so that then I can now go and drop this content on a page or add it over here from the content tab. So I'm just checking my variable names, make sure that I have everything set up. Yep. Okay. So I can now come over here and add to call to action. I can add a new call to action here. Right? And these are the fields we just looked at, button 1 and button 2. Or I can do it right on a page. So I'm going to go back to the site browser, go back to my index page, and add my new content right down here at the bottom in my headless edit mode anywhere experience. So the same thing we just clicked on the content tab, I can click here from the page and add content. And the type of content I'm going to add is a call to action. Right. And now we're looking at that experience here to add it. And this is where you can determine if different user roles have different permissions to add content to different hosts. This is where that content host or folder field comes into play, because it will respect permissions and only allow them to save to the host that they actually have permissions to. So, oh, and you know what? I'm going to add some properties over here. I want to limit this WYSIWYG. I'm kind of glad I showed it though. So I don't want all these formatting tools. So I'm actually going to step back and make it a more minimalistic experience. So right here, I can go to this subheading WYSIWYG, and I can click field variables here. And what I'm going to do is add one. We use tinymce as a WYSIWYG editor. So I'm actually going to enter the key. And then I'm just going to give it the path to a file after setting a variable, and click save. And then I'm going to have this file that's sitting right here that I can control. I can add more properties for tinymce anytime that I want to then control that experience. So now whenever we go to call to action, and we go to add a new piece of content from here, or the page, you see it's a minimalistic set of formatting tools. So
Quick question for you,
Sure.
Dean. On the file, is that stored somewhere where in dotCMS or?
Yeah, it's right here under
Got it.
application
So it's
and
almost like an
WYSIWYG.
asset, basically.
Yes. So you can configure as many different configurations and then just keep deploying them again and again on
Yeah.
WYSIWYG fields. Great
Yeah.
question though.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay. So and actually before we end up dropping our content on the page, what I can do, because on each content type you have the ability to set a workflow. Right now it's using system workflow. I'm going to actually flip it to use the call to action workflow right here, and not use the system workflow, right? And that's a new custom workflow that I just set up that's not in our starter, but I went ahead and set it up here. And basically this is the way that this custom workflow for this content type is going to work. If you want to add another workflow step, you just click here, call it draft, translate, review, whatever you wish, and then you can just drag these around anywhere you wish to set the order, and you can add as many sub actions as you want to appear to different user groups, right? So you can permission, if I only want save to be accessible by contributor and anyone who can contribute content, those are the only ones that will actually be able to see the buttons that I am making, and then they will perform the actions, the sub actions over here on the right. So I set up some basics that the content contributor would have to send to a translator. Translator would translate, then send to a reviewer. The reviewer would publish. What I'm going to add for myself right now is a workaround with auto translation that will automatically, from the very first step, take a publish and translate action and move the content from the very first step all the way over to published. So I'm going to add that first in the published step here. So I'm going to actually translate and publish at the same time. And I'm going to say who can use. I want exclusive use of this button. So instead of giving it to any of the other user roles, I actually want to give it only to the admin user, which is me. And so that way you can make all the buttons completely exclusive. This show when shows when the user will actually see the button based upon the content state, whether they're clicking on a whole bunch of content in a listing, or whether the content is locked or unlocked, whether it's published or unpublished. You can determine when that button actually appears. You can also control if the user, as a part of the action, can assign content. If they're sending email or sending the task to someone for review, you can activate those buttons. And the default action is automatically notify, send an email, and the notification inside of dotCMS to that user. But here, if I want to publish and translate and publish, I want a save, which I can just start typing and it'll automatically include those actions. I'll take off the notify assignee. And here you can see there's tons of sub actions that I don't have time to talk about, but there's 4 eyes approval, where you can set how many committee members need to approve something before it moves on. Copy content lit, large internal message, small internal message, social networking, push publishing, a couple different types of push publishing, requiring multiple approvers, sending emails, and each one of these actually has its own configuration inside, right? And I'm going to throw one for auto translation using Google Translate, right? So I'm going to save the content, and like I said, translate and publish. I'm going to publish the content, and I'm going to translate the content. And here is my translation. I'm just inserting here my Google Translate API key, developer key, so it'll handle the translation. I could even say ignore, please, fields that have the velocity variable name key. Don't translate those, and then place that in there. And then if I am going to allow this to be shown whenever the content is locked, I can automatically unlock the content so that no step in my workflow unlocks the content. I click save. And now I want to use that translate and publish button in multiple steps because I'm the only one who has access. So I want to give myself the ability to override any of those actions at any point in the step, because it's only going to be visible to me. The nice thing about the workflow also is that you can say, who can actually see. So I can actually see anyone who can edit content, what buttons do they see for this call to action content type that it's applied to, and I get a horizontal view. And then if I say anyone who can publish the content, then they can actually get the rest of those actions. So you can get a nice horizontal and complete view for each user in the system on what they can actually do. So let me just make sure that that actually is applied to my content type. Yes, call to action. And then let's go add the call to action to the page. So let's go back to our index page here, edit mode, and go down to the bottom. And I'm just going to click here and add new content. And I'm going to hit call to action, now using, which you can see, my brand new button that I put there, right? So I'm going to add already dreaming of winter for my winter vacation little experience here. And then for my button, I want to say book now, you know, and that'll go to a predetermined package page like destinations Colorado or something like that. I could put button 2 as well, and then that would also pick it up as a secondary button, but we're just going to hit it. I can click save. We can see that it's showing me my content type is call to action. My workflow is call to action. It's in step draft because I just click save. And then I can click translate and publish. And then that's going to actually, save that action. It'll publish the action. And now it's ready to be viewed upon the page. And here I've got my already dreaming of winter, and I can click on that, and that'll lead me to my page. So it's very,
A,
very easy.
a couple of questions for you, Dean. Here, number one and if it's out of the scope of this presentation, don't worry about it. We can do another one later on.
Sure.
But you send it for translation. Where does the author get to see? And I'm assuming it didn't really go for translation during the demo here, but
Yeah, it did.
where does it did? Okay, great. So where does the author get to see the localized version, right? The translated version.
Right. I'm going to actually, there's a multilingual part where I'm going to add a lot of different multilingual contentlet, but you can actually just click here and click
Ah,
on
there you go. Yeah,
Spanish
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and
Okay,
instantly see, and I speak Spanish and
that's
so do you.
awesome.
So you
Yep.
can see instantaneous translation. Now, is machine language translation perfect?
No, I can already
No.
see that. It's not the best. I
No,
already.
it's not.
You need
So
a human. You need a human.
that's why you can put it in. I actually operate live sites right now where we do machine language translation, then pass it in the workflow to a translator, which actually that's why I set up the
Yeah,
workflow that way. That it goes to them, and then they review what's automatically translated.
and
Then
they
they can
approve
flip
it.
back to the original
Right.
language as well, you know, and
Hmm.
see what it should have been and then adjust. But getting it
Um,
80% of the way there is sometimes very
yeah,
helpful.
yeah. No, that's a great starting point. The other thing is right here. You're showing. I'm going to remove us. You're showing the actual what it's going to look like on the page, and you just created the content type. This is not auto generated. You still need a developer to create this. I'm assuming, or I'm asking, you need a developer to create this preview of this component, correct?
Yes. Now the next jest has to be created, and your site design and which content and which components you're going to allow has to be
Right.
built into your next jest. So that
Got
that
it.
part we're not going to get into the code
No,
today, but yes, that's created. And then so if the user then creates that component, as long as it's handling the same the
it'll know.
variables, everything, yeah, and the
Yeah,
same
yeah, yeah.
field types, then you're okay.
Yep. And final question on localization. Everything gets translated, or can you say, do not translate this field? Can you, at the content type, say this field is not translatable?
Yes, I actually added what is in the workflow is which field names you want to completely ever ignore
Oh,
on
I
every
remember you
content
doing
type.
that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I actually
Okay.
did key because we have language variables, which that has a key. You want to stay the same between all the different languages, and then the other
Right.
field is the actual value. So that's why I always typically say, hey, don't translate key
Yeah.
because we want that one to remain the same. So yeah, on a field by field basis, mixing and matching between content types, that would be a customization, but out of the box, you can declare all the ones that you don't want the translator to hit.
Got it. Okay. Great. Thank you.
Sure. And you could tie it to an external translation service. You don't have to use Google Translate. You could use Amazon. You could use something else as well. Okay. So now another thing that we have a lot of clients who are thinking about headless, and they come back to us and say, you know what, we really want this, is the ability to create new landing pages on the fly, and just boom, and also to be able to adjust the templates that are given to the marketers or content contributors. So the second I do this, remember I told you that the app is reading my page layout API and also my content API. So I can actually say that I want a 50-50 split here and add another area, which we call containers, right? And add the same container that's being used pretty much everywhere else except the top, which is specific for banners. And then I go back to my content. You can even, change other things here, and I click edit, and now instantly my app knows because it's reading the layout API. I can actually show you the layout API live for this page. I have it going on another tab, and now I can go ahead and add another piece of content over here on the right hand side in this 50-50 layout, right? And of course, anything that I drag and drop between my different fields should automatically resize, automatically adjust and be responsive to the column and row that I'm in, because once again, that's part of what comes back in the layout API. Okay, so now that we've added that content, I'm going to actually add an image over here on the right and just drag that right in from the shortcut panel.
Real
And
quick, sorry to
sure.
interrupt you again. And I know this is a little bit out of the scope of this presentation, but in the layout API, are you able to have layouts by channel? In other words, so if I have a layout for mobile versus a layout, is that a possibility, or do you just have one layout for the site, basically?
We have one layout per page, but I'm going to show you how whenever you switch to that other channel, you can completely change all of the content and make it a complete content, custom content delivery experience.
Sure.
And you can ignore certain rows. If you don't
Right.
have any, content in them, then it won't show at all and just,
Hmm.
bring up. So,
Awesome.
yeah,
Cool.
sure. Okay, so I'm going to now add an image by just dragging and dropping. So here I'm going to choose a file asset, and I've got an image over here, fresh powder. I'm going to bring that in, and I can choose to decide where I actually store, that image as it's uploaded. I can change the title and add a tag, maybe snow. And you see it automatically picks up from the previously committed tags to the content. And then I'll do some little description that'll automatically get picked up on my image and publish my content onto the page here. And now I've got that, image over here to the right that goes kind of with, and I can, once again, I can drag and drop that around my page, do whatever I want, and it should automatically be responsive to the layout of the page, right? Makes sense. Okay, so now I'm going to handle some of that content localization experience, right? So if I wanted to actually come up here and translate some of these activities and show them in Spanish. Right now, I don't believe it's showing in Spanish at all. I do have some of the others, but the activities don't show. It's completely avoided as a row, right? Because there is no content there. So I'm actually going to flip back to English and show two different ways that you can localize that content. So number one, I did add to the system workflow, I added a translate button here as well. So I can click translate. As I showed you, you can preview the Spanish that's auto-generated. Now I can go ahead and flip to my Spanish preview of the page, and now I see buceo, here instantly. Or I can go back to my English over here, go to activities, and I can perform the action in bulk. Remember, we were looking at the different views. So let me look at my English only, which once again, you can preview and sort by everything. So I can click here. I already did diving, so I don't need to translate that one in bulk. And then I can just click on my workflow actions and click translate, and it's going to translate all of my 9 activities all at the same time. All right. So it's giving me a countdown for the translation. Okay, so now all of them are translated. I can look only at my Spanish here and see all of it instantly translated as well. Then I go back to my site browser, open up my index page. I'm looking at it already in Spanish because it saw that I flipped to it in the content editor to Spanish, and so it kind of stays in the session until you change it. So now I'll flip back to English, right? So that way you can completely preview pages by language, by device type. So looking at a phone or a tablet landscape or portrait, I can go ahead and preview all the content, the new content I added on the same of the page, and get all those previews. Right?
On the devices there, are those built into dotCMS, or are these are we able to, let's say, create new devices, like for example add the Amazon, I don't want to say the name because she'll start
Yeah.
speaking, but the Amazon lady, can we add different things here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I'm not sure whether anymore that's a configuration or it's a content type. It used to be a content type. I might have moved to a configuration now, but
Got
yes,
it. That
absolutely.
makes sense. Okay,
Yep.
cool.
Um, so So now I want to discuss personalization, which also works in our headless mode. Remember, everything we're seeing is completely headless. Well, the page we're seeing is created by my Next.js app. The only thing it's doing is reading APIs, right? So I'm going to show a perspective here on the page. These are different personas that you can build. This is just content, and I can create another persona just by clicking here and say mobile user. And I want the mobile user to see completely different content, or North American visitor or European visitor. I can regionalize in that way, and even put geolocation on content. We actually have geolocation files you can add as custom fields. So I can switch over to the vacation type visitor that I want to hit. And I can see that here I have for my winter enthusiast, I don't have activities. I do have for my eco enthusiast, completely different banner, zip lining, diving, hiking, whitewater rafting. I have for my ocean enthusiast, completely different version of the page. And what we have built into the starter is if you actually hit the destination section and show that you're interested in a winter vacation, then you come back to your homepage, it'll automatically flip to this because we have a rule in the rules engine that says whenever the user shows interest, and it could react to language set in the browser, it could react to your region and automatically load the page that way before the user does anything. But there's a whole rules engine I don't have time to go into, but that helps to automatically detect who the user is, detect what behavior they're showing, and then you can pull personalized on the content and create many different versions of the page. Right now I'm going to show, if I go to my winter enthusiast, there are no activities. So then I can click edit only for the winter enthusiast version of the page. I can click here and then add content. I want to add activities, right? And then I'll pick the snowmobiling. We see that the language version here as well. I could just show the English, right? And click search and show just that. So I'll add some snowmobiling and content and snowboarding. And it doesn't matter which language version I actually pick. It will automatically show only the one that, and add skiing and maybe cross-country skiing. And now I have created a custom set of activities that I want uh, the user who I identify as someone who's interested in a winter vacation to be able to see on the page. I can also do, if I see that the boots are out of alignment here, so I want to drag and drop my boot. Let's just say if I dragged it over here, once again, it should be responsive even in headless. And I drag it over here to the top of this guy, and now I've got my boots in line. I've got my video there. I've got my images, and now the page is looking the way I want it, right? Okay. All right. So we did a language preview, device type preview, persona preview. I personalized a little bit for the winter enthusiast. I'm going to switch back to the default visitor. And then we're going to cover headless navigation. So if you have side menus or you have a main menu like this, and let's just say the store, we don't want it here on the far right hand side. I want to adjust it and move it before members only. So I can be in my edit mode, click on that little arrow there, drag my store, and you can even drag sub items as well, because this is navigation as a service. We build everything headlessly. Right now my store moves over here, and it doesn't matter what page I go to. I'm going to go to the travel blog section in just a second, and it's the menu remains for all of my pages, right? Navigation as a service, headless first.
Can you create multiple navigations and say, oh, here I want to show this different navigation for this page versus the main page?
Yes, you would just set the navigation level for that component. And you could also allow that to be configurable.
Got it. So you can have multiple types of navigation. And then here I go show navigation A, which is this one.
Yeah.
And in another page, I can say show navigation B, which would be a minimalist version of this one, let's say.
Yeah, I can even turn that into a widget instead of, being
Right.
up here in the header. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah. And I do have widgets to show as well, where we can, you can just choose a product list or something like that, and then just automatically show it by category or metadata, etc. And what your Next.js will do is then take all the parameters set and the metadata for filtering the content, and then just simply pull the list via API. So if you want to see that, we can show that as well. I want to now show you the block editor. So let me go to our travel blog section. This is really cool. I've shown WYSIWYG so far, but we actually have our block editor built into dotCMS to allow basically creating a very large JSON object using multiple blocks. So I'll go to edit mode here in my blog editor. And let's just say I want to add something about scuba diving because that's my hobby, even though you didn't ask me that question. And let's just click in here, and we're opening up our block editor, which you can see there are several different blocks here, and I can drag and drop those around the page, and create basically multiple blocks that all form a nice JSON object that then everything can be read from and reacted to using your app, and control the presentation of how that each component should look. I can step right in here and edit something. Did you have a question?
No, I was going to say, so this is almost like Notion. So you can add blocks. I don't know if you're familiar with Notion itself, the app, but like you can add multiple blocks. Yeah, like that. Yeah, okay. So if we wanted to add a new blog, we just
Yes. So that's what I'm going to do right now.
okay.
Great. I'm glad you asked that question. So I could just say,
Right. Yep.
this is how, the rules for scuba diving.
Well, and one thing I noticed too is when you added the block, also you can use the forward slash to select the type of block, right?
Exactly.
That's
Exactly.
just very much like Notion where you do the markup kind of thing. Very cool.
hmm And so I'm actually going to add images in a couple of different ways here. First, I'm going to actually just drag and drop an image of a scuba diver right here. So I'm just going to go from my desktop. You can't see my desktop, but I'm just dragging it right in and adding it, and it's going to upload that image straight to the page, right?
Yeah, very cool.
So that's kind of nice to be able to just do that. And, I can go to the properties. I can say, add the alt text. And add a caption underneath, do whatever I want. It shows me my path to my digital asset. I can left, right, and center, create a link if I need to, and just simply add it that way. However, you can also, let's just say I wanted to add another image down here. I could just go to Google and just look for an image and right click and copy that image. I can actually even copy the image address and keep the image stored external to dotCMS. But I'm going to now paste that, and then it's taking the copied image and placing it right inside of dotCMS. Once again, I can change the alt tag and everything like that. So there's lots of things that you can do here inside the editor. If I now highlight this link and I click link, then I can even, change my link, change how it opens, if it opens up in a new window or not, remove the link, copy the link, do whatever I want, as in addition to all the styling aspects as well, right? So then I click update, and it updates the page. I can even come down here to the bottom, and let's just say I want to add to my block editor another content type, right? So I want to add products down to the bottom or something like that. So I can click edit and click in here again and go down to the bottom. We were talking about scuba diving, so maybe there's some recommended products, and I see maybe one is missing here. So I want to add, instead of a heading or a paragraph or just some text, you could even do code blocks, and you can actually, whitelist any of these and hide them. It's totally up to you as far as the configuration, but I can also add contentlets. Right. So now I'm getting a complete list of all the contentlets or components, which are handled by my Next.js app. So I can come down here to a product and say I want to search for, a scuba diving, gear, or, something here. I'll just do this O'Neill vest, and then just add that. And then of course my styling of how that product should look within the block editor is coming from Next.js, right?
Now, if the author wants to edit that, this is cool because this supports single source of truth right here, as opposed to just typing in content that is only on this page, right? If the author wants to edit the O'Neill one, can they click there and it'll update the entry in that content type?
I have not built that in,
Got it.
but conceivably yes, because really all it would be doing is leading you into
Right, the entry for that.
exactly.
Yeah,
So,
so you could go there now and update it, and
mhm.
it'll update on the page just
Oh,
because it's
absolutely.
it's
Yeah,
a
everything is
reference
content
basically.
centric. It's all here.
Yeah,
The call to action, the products, everything that we're seeing, and we connect and create relationships inside that block editor to other pieces of content. It all comes from here.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So this
yeah,
piece of content could be on, 100 different pages, and
yeah.
then the second I make a change to this O'Neill, the second I make a change to the
It'll
title, that's
update
it
on the
as well.
page. Yep.
Yes, exactly.
Well, I'm going to let you finish because we're almost out of time, and there's just so many questions to ask just because there's a lot of cool features. But I'll let
Sure.
you go ahead and finish, Dean.
Okay, well, so that's really the content management experience in edit mode anywhere in dotCMS from a headless perspective. The great thing is that in dotCMS, content publishers and managers do not have to give up any of their content management experience, even while developers are creating that modern external decoupled application. And they can create new pages, change layouts, drag and drop navigation items and content, drag images into articles straight from their desktop that they're writing, all without asking a developer for help. Creating new marketing pages, establishing their own layouts from templates that are initially designed by webmasters. This is the power and flexibility and hybrid capability of dotCMS when developing sites. On the same server, some sites can have pages built in dotCMS, some can have sites that are external SPAs controlling, or having multiple sites that do both. Building and designing new landing pages, all of that does not need special help when building an SPA in a headless environment in dotCMS. So we're trying to offer the best of both worlds there. And really, that's all I had to cover. Thank you so much, Marcelo, for giving me the opportunity to.
Dean, that was great, man.
Yeah,
Really, really, really. Yeah, you did a very thorough feature list here that you showed us. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. If people want to get hold of you for more information, is it the email right there? Is that the best place?
absolutely. Dean@dotcms.com.
Yep, and we can find you scuba diving during your off hours, I guess.
Yes,
Excellent.
absolutely.
Yeah, I didn't ask you about that one because I got interested in the food. So
I love that too.
I know, right? Right, exactly. All right, Dean, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, man.
If you're ever in Miami, Marcelo, look me up.
I definitely will. I definitely will. Thank you. And thanks to the rest of you for being here. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Discover Headless Tech course. I know I did, learned a lot of stuff. Definitely go check them out. And for those of you watching live, have a fantastic weekend, and we'll see you on the next lesson. Cheers.